Hey, I'm Joe. I'm a concept art student at Stafford University at the moment, and I like to paint. This is a series of gesture drawings I've been doing semi-regularly. It's nice to open up the day with them and get going. And I've had a fair few people ask me how I'm approaching them, asking me what brushes I use, which is kind of a stereotypical one, and asking me what I'm thinking about when I'm doing them. So I thought I'd make a video. I stream on Twitch sometimes, but I feel like it's very different sitting down making an actual recorded video. I'm just gonna let this first one play, and you can make up your own thoughts about how I might be thinking about things, and then I might explain over the next couple of ones what I'm thinking when I'm painting. Obviously this is recorded days after and it's sped up, so yeah. This one's finished now. That was quick. Most of these are about 9 to 10 minutes. Right, and as this next one starts, you can see that the way that I'm going to be approaching a lot of these, and the way that I do approach a lot of these, is by just blocking in giant swathes of tone. If you've ever seen me paint on Twitch, you know that I like to approach my studies kind of values first. I think it's important to get values down. Values dictate shapes, and shapes make up a good painting. So I'm just separating the individual forms here into dark and light. It's more nuanced than that. In the actual photo that I used as reference, there were likely, hundreds if not thousands of separate little pixels of mid-tone in between. But for the purpose of this, I just want it simplified. I want to be able to read it instantly when I look at it, and to do that, you only really need 2 values. And on to the next one. Right, as you can see, I'm blocking in this one, and I'm interested to see what you think this is, because I tried recording the audio for this not long ago, and it messed up. It didn't record. I think I was doing something wrong. But initially when I recorded over this one, I was under the impression that that blob at the top was a shoulder for some reason. It's been a couple of days since I actually drew them, and I think that in itself is quite a nice point, that until they're finished, sometimes they can be a bit abstract, and that's just like any form. But this one is especially clear that just by blocking in some of those large shadow shapes, that entire leg is one tone. And we have some line drawing here and there just to reinforce those kind of bigger, broader strokes. And then we have a huge correction right there, moving the leg inwards, because these aren't going to be perfect, You're never going to do a figure and it's going to be perfect. I have a physiotherapist friend who will tell you when your figures aren't perfect. Even if you, as a kind of untrained artist, think, oh, that's a nice figure, there's going to be something wrong. There's going to be some muscle out of place, or some ligament kind of untethered. But here we go again, we're just blocking in these shapes. It's a really simple process, and I recommend you try it. It's a different way of viewing form. I think it takes a while, especially if you're beginning as an artist, to make that jump over from line to value, where you start thinking in shape rather than lines. And it's not necessarily a jump that you'll ever have to make, because there are plenty of artists whose styles require kind of heavy use of line, and they can do that in a really beautiful way. But personally, and as a painter more than a drawer, I feel like you can get some nice big bold shapes in very quickly. It lends itself to speed more than line might. It's also loose enough that you're less conservative with your strokes. I know that sometimes we as artists can be perfectionists of sorts, and I feel that working with giant swathes of tone prevent me from being too careful about changing things. You can see that arm there, I just dragged it up, and it's a couple of strokes, so even if I had to get rid of it, it's no big deal. You can see this thing I'm doing here. Well, you would have been able to before it went off, where I'm plotting in the border between light and shadow. You might see it again here. And that's the terminus line. Now, our eyes naturally see a contrast when we see light and dark right next to each other. Our eyes think that the border between that light and dark is darker than the rest of the dark and lighter than the rest of the light. And that's just because of the contrast. And if you want to artificially plot that in when you're painting, that could just be a nice touch to sell the form. You saw there I probably used a really large hard smudge tool to move that shoulder down and again. And I think that's especially useful when you're trying to play with big masses of forms, and it would be arguably less effective if you were using a line. Just getting simple shapes down. I seem to remember I wasn't too happy with this guy's legs, or his feet. I feel like there's something oddly out of proportion with them, but I couldn't put my finger on it. And it's kind of a good example of the fact that you might not be happy with a lot of the things you produce. But I feel like sometimes the trick is to just produce enough of it so that you get a couple of results you're happy with. I personally am doing concept art. I'm not sure about illustration and that kind of thing, but in concept art, even when you're designing anything, it's good practice to do 15, 20, 25 iterations of it first, so that just by sheer chance alone one of them is going to be good. And that is a principle that I feel that you can apply to so many different areas, especially as an artist. It's just, if you're not enjoying studying, if you don't think you're doing very well, if you're not enjoying painting, if you do more of it, you're upping your chances that you'll do something you like. It's important to do things you don't like anyway, to get it out of the way, I, for example, was terrified of drawing figures for about 5 years. Couldn't do them at all. But I decided just over one summer that I'd had enough of being terrified. So I picked up my Wacom pen, and every day I'd draw 30. And you might be thinking, oh, 30, that's a lot. Or maybe you're thinking 30, that's not many. But it was just half an hour. They were 1 minute each. And that's all it kind of takes, I think. That's all it takes. It's just a little bit of commitment gets you a long way. Here's another one where we get this very bold tone in very early on. That's an entire leg, and if anyone saw it in isolation without the rest of the body, they might not know what it is, but it's the context that gives it its form. And that's okay too. There I am again with the smudge, just smudging that out because it's a core shadow, not a cast shadow, so it should be a soft transition. Shouldn't be hard. There's another arm, quick as you like. I know it's sped up, but even in real time, you know, that arm is what, 10-15 seconds? There's a full head and some hair. And I'm not practicing portraiture, it's unimportant if I draw the features of the face. I can practice portraiture in isolation when I like. But do you see how I don't necessarily have to add that line in on the back? Before I added that line, it's still red as a form, and your eyes do this amazing thing where you just fill it in yourself. And there's something great to be said about the human psychology there. And you can rely on that in a lot of your paintings, I've found. Tons of my paintings, I've scribbled something out, or I've just smudged it because I can't be bothered with it. And I've had lovely comments from people telling me that I am an artistic genius for leaving it out, and I am just letting people see what I want them to see, and their brain's gonna fill in the rest. It's kind of that fake it till you make it sort of deal, isn't it? Some of these are completely anatomically off, but that brush confidence, I hope you'll agree, gives them a degree of appeal that you just kind of wouldn't get otherwise if these were shaky, if I was unsure of myself when I was doing them. You just gotta sell them as if they work. Thank you for watching. That was my first YouTube video, so I hope there will be more. I did it in one take too, which is surprising. I might put in some bloopers because God, I hate recording audio. Alright, see you around.